It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're starting the summer 1999 movie season, looking at May 7th, 1999. We only have one movie to look at, but as I said, the summer of 1999, I've said this in the last couple of videos actually, building up to this, this is probably the start of one of the greatest summers of all time, one of the great summer movie seasons of all time, because maybe not with this weekend, but as we get further and further into the summer, we're going to see a lot of classic movies that we still look up to, even today, almost 25 years later. And, like I said, this first one's not a classic, but it does have a loyal following to it. It's Brendan Fraser's The Mummy.
This man was buried alive, but he left a message.
What's it say?
Death is only the beginning.
On May 7th,
You must not read from the book! What?
the impossible will come true,
has begun, the beginning of the end.
and the unimaginable will walk the earth. The Mummy. He's here. Rated PG-13. Starts...
This is, of course, a remake to the 1932 Boris Karloff film of the same name. It's part of the Universal Monsters, and you can definitely tell with this movie they were trying to mix in a little bit of Indiana Jones in addition to trying to make it more of it's not just a straightforward horror adaptation of the original horror film. They've added in elements of Indiana Jones, and this is something that was in development for so many years, and Stephen Sommers, the director of this, basically pitched his idea as more of an adventurous and romantic take on the source material. You can see there's a lot more comedic elements into the film as well, and this is a film that went through so many different attempts to get this film made. George A. Romero was attached at one point to do it. Clive Barker was at one point attached to do it. Tom Cruise, before he eventually would star in the 2017 version, was actually offered the role of the main character in this, but he turned it down. Brad Pitt, Matt Damon, and Ben Affleck also turned it down too. But Brendan Fraser essentially got the job, seeing how he did very well with George of the Jungle that came out 2 years prior. And the film itself is... how do I put this? It's a pretty decent film. It's a film that really, it's not a bad film per se. There are elements where it definitely feels like they're trying to do something like an Indiana Jones type of adventure for a new generation by bringing in this element of the mummy in here. And at times, it does work. You do buy into Brendan Fraser as the main character in this situation, and his relationship he has with Rachel Weisz in here. Arnold Vosloo as the villain can be threatening at times, but then again, we'll get to some of the most of the negatives with him later on down the road, because it's not really his fault. It's just the stuff that they have him doing this. But overall, the movie does look pretty impressive for the most part. I mean, the special effects in here sort of go back and forth, but the visual look of the film looks amazing for the most part. I mean, it definitely feels like there's a lot of effort being put into this. And it's funny because a lot of people, when they showed this to test audiences, they reacted poorly to the title of this because... The Mummy, it conjured up a lot of negative impressions of an old horror film, and then Universal basically decided to put an ad out during the Super Bowl to essentially bring people in to the idea that this could actually be something worth watching, and it kind of turned the film's prospects around overall, especially when they pushed it back from the big movie of the year, which we'll get to in a couple of weeks, but I think you know what I'm talking about, but I digress. Yeah, some of the negatives I have for this mostly come in the visual effects. Sometimes the visual effects look pretty cool, but at the same time, there are a lot of very, very dated special effects, especially on the mummy himself. There are shots in here where these effects were probably pretty impressive in 1999, but considering where we are now with technology and all that, they look pretty bad on a number of levels. Like when Arnold Vosloo has to open his mouth up, I swear there are elements in here that look like a cartoon character at times. I mean, this is more cartoonish than the DuckTales movie. I mean, that tells you everything you probably need to know about this. But at times it does look, the CG does work pretty well, and they do add in special practical effects, the effects that are actually there, and they do a pretty good job of managing it together. Even though there are a lot of times when you can definitely tell the difference between a practical effect and a visual effect pretty easily, especially nowadays if you watch this on 4K. But yeah, I don't think I have really much more to say about this. I never really grew up with the Mummy movies per se. I know these movies have a loyal fan base to them. They made a couple of these after this one, but just to me personally, it just never really clicked with me. Honestly, I tried to get into it many times. It was just never for me. I think it was just a little bit too much of the let's make our own. It's basically Universal trying to make their own Indiana Jones style adventure, which it did pay off for them in the end. It was a big hit when it came out. It did have this loyal following that it created its own franchise of films, including several spin-offs and all that. But, I don't know, just me personally, I thought it was just okay. I don't think it's anything too spectacular or anything too groundbreaking. At times, there are some funny moments here and there. At times, there's some really good visual effects to it. But most of the time, it's a pretty generic story, honestly, and it doesn't really have that... And when the effects are bad, they are really, really bad. And I don't know. It just didn't really... The ebb and flow didn't really work with me on this one. I know it has a lot of fan base to it, so if you like it, hey, more power to you. But to me, I just thought it was okay for what it was. But I'll give you this much: it certainly is better than anything that came after this film, because the sequels, for the most part, are pretty downright terrible. But we'll eventually get into those as we move along here. But not much more to say about this one. So that is The Mummy. So just that one movie to look at this week. Next week, though, on Time About the Movies, we'll have 6 movies to look at. None of them made a lasting impact overall, but there are some ones that are of noteworthiness, including Jet Li's Black Mask, William Shakespeare's A Midsummer's Night's Dream, the comedy Trippin', Tea with Mussolini. We also have the re-release of the classic Wallace Shawn Andre Gregory movie, My Dinner with Andre, and also the underground comedy movie, which, if you never heard of this movie before, clearly you did not watch a lot of Comedy Central in the early 2000s, because you saw an ad for this movie pretty much anywhere on late night television, and you might know who the director of this movie ended up becoming, the ShamWow guy, and we will delve into that as we move along here, as we'll look at those 6 movies on the next episode. But until then, thank you very much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode, and also don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this on this channel. So with that said, I am off. I will see you guys next time, and until then, as always, take care.